Mexico is an absolutely beautiful land, including tall mountains, deserts, and even rainforests. It has a relatively small population density, measured at 63 people per kilometer squared, also including a small car use of 275 cars per 1,000 people. Mexico may be considered non-developed or developing, but still has televisions, smartphones, and engineering programs. Sadly, this beautiful land is coded by a bloody, brutal, and violent war. This isn't just an ordinary war. This war is fought between over 50 drug cartels and the Mexican government. What makes it so bloody? Well, it's a free-for-all, and it's not going to stop until there's one force standing. One of the major causes of this war is something so simple that it's hard to believe it is deserving of a war. Drugs. The entire war rotates on drugs. Who can sell the most? Who can make the most money? These questions soon turned into competition, which over time morphed into brutal executions, battles over entire towns, and overall one of the bloodiest wars in history. Some say Pablo Escobar started all of this with his genius ways of transporting drugs and show off how much money you can make in the business. He became one of the top 10 richest men in the world from his drug cartel, yet in reality, the entire point of this war is the demand America created. With the demand of drugs in the United States, more and more drug cartels sprung up, causing more competition. What are the odds that the United States, the country that has been involved in the most wars in history, is responsible for all of this? The war officially started on December 11th, 2006. The Mexican drug war is a free-for-all between hundreds of drug cartels and the Mexican government. Some examples of drug cartels are the oldest drug cartel in existence, the Gulf Cartel, the most brutal drug cartel, the Los Zetas, and the most successful drug cartel, the Sinaloas. All of these cartels use different tactics. The Mexican government uses strategic war strategies such as allowing the cartels to attack each other before striking when they're weak. The Mexican government is the 31st strongest military in the world, but is still believed that they lack power compared to many of the cartels. They're known to hunt down spouses and children to locate drug cartel leaders and to burn thought hideouts to the ground. You may think that's brutal, but the Los Zetas make it seem like a slap on the wrist by performing public executions, mass slaughters, and are even known to skin entire cities alive. These brutal tactics have allowed them to take over most of the West Coast. However, the Sinaloas still have the most success. Formerly led by El Chapo, they've made billions and billions of dollars, allowing them to have military-grade hardware. Yet the Gulf Cartel has been around more than 30 years and are known for kidnappings and brutal assassination. Although it was really difficult to select a certain conflict to follow, the Los Zetas versus Gulf Cartel seemed to be the most interesting. This battle began in 2009 when the Los Zetas broke off of the Gulf Cartel to form their own. This caused a massive war, yet the Los Zetas were not taken seriously until they launched a tsunami of violence against cities bordering Texas to the south. This was marked Gulf Cartel territory. The Los Zetas ran in with a mass number of soldiers, showing their brutality by murdering random families, burning random houses, and executing parents in front of their children, until Gulf Cartel soldiers showed up to defend against the ambush. Weeks passed until it was over a month, a full month of unstoppable explosions and seemingly unlimited gunfire. Even the military dared not to intervene as these two brutal cartels went head-to-head. In the end, what was left of the Gulf Cartel had successfully defended their territory. However, they took heavier losses than ever before, and possibly ever will again. The Zetas quickly began dominating the war, forcing the Gulf Cartel to look for a very powerful ally, the Sinaloas. Led by El Chapo, they had access to the best military hardware you could ask for. The Sinaloa drug cartel owned nearly half of Mexico, as the Los Zetas dominated the West Coast. This created the biggest drug cartel war in history, especially with the Mexican government attempting to intervene. The Mexican government would send military mid-battle. If they weren't successful in defeating both sides, their weapons and armored vehicles would fall into the winner's hands. This created numerous three-way firefights, unpredictable, but always bloody. Eventually, the Los Zetas surrendered, but both cartels were so damaged that the odds of either going to their former strength is minuscule to none. Many of you may wonder why these cartels managed to be so difficult to conquer. Well, some of the blame lies within the Mexican government. El Chapo has been captured more than once, but due to corruption within the government, he was allowed to pay them off. Just goes to show that perhaps the government doesn't want these cartels gone. Perhaps they're simply using them for a large bump in funding. Also, the fact remains that the Mexican government can't hold a candle to many of the drug cartels. They simply don't have the manpower, the equipment, or the tactics needed to face these brutes. All they have managed to achieve a few wins, ranking on a scale of minor to major, although most wins were due to the United States lending support. One example of a major win is the recent El Chapo capture. With the recent capture of the famed Sinaloa cartel leader, The humongous impact made cannot be underestimated. Thanks to assistance from the FBI, the Mexican government, and the thrive for fame that El Chapo possessed, ultimately led to his downfall. But what overall impact has this horrific war had on Mexico? Well, before 2014, the death total per year was 5,000, except during Sinaloa versus Zetas, in which the death total accumulated to 20,000 per year. Surprisingly enough, the Mexican drug war has killed far more Americans than ISIS and is estimated to have killed 2 to 3 million people in total. The war has caused a massive increase in international crime, and it has caused extreme amounts of mass immigration, both legal and illegally, into the neighboring countries, including America, Guatemala, and etc. There are stories of children walking all the way from the southern tip of Mexico to the United States, thousands of miles apart from their starting point. Although all of this is indeed a tale of woe, nothing could be sadder than the carnage and the destruction left behind as cartel wars continue through towns. Hundreds of houses burned to the ground, hospitals ravaged, and even schools fired upon. Innocent citizens executed until it's now been considered as mass genocide. This multinational war is still going on today. Although more than a few cartels have fallen, been wiped out by the Mexican government or other cartels, many still stand strong. The Mexican government and the United States are still attempting to put an end to this war, but with the cartel's strength crippling the Mexican government, corruption flowing through, can they really win? I suppose there was no telling who will win. The real question is what will happen once one side wins. If one cartel becomes the last man standing, do they own all of Mexico? We should pray not, for as long as drug cartels exist, destruction will continue, violence will still be accepted as the only answer, and international crime will continue to escalate. Yet we must remember that America is chiming in, so I leave the question to you. Who will be the victor of this war? Sadly, the only thing that we really know for sure is that it won't be them.